You know, some cars are just legends, and today we're diving into one with a secret double life, the Mercedes-Benz W124. Built from the mid-80s to the mid-90s, for so many people, this car represents the absolute peak of what Mercedes-Benz could do.
It's famous for a reason. You've probably heard it called the last over-engineered Mercedes. The doors shut with this satisfying bank vault kind of sound. The materials inside feel like they were carved out of a single piece of granite. And you hear these stories all the time about them hitting 1,000,000 kilometers. It's just wild. This car was built with this incredible, almost obsessive focus on quality and just making it last forever.
But here's where the story gets really interesting. The W124 that you'd find in Stuttgart, Germany, was actually a totally different beast from the one sitting in a showroom in Los Angeles. It really did lead a double life, with two completely distinct personalities. So let's start where it all began, right? Over in Europe. Here, the W124 wasn't really seen as a luxury item. It was the tool. It was the trusted, super dependable workhorse for families, for businesses, and for pretty much every taxi fleet on the continent. Okay, check this out. This is a page straight from the original German brochure. And just look at what they're focusing on. It's all about pure practicality. How many suitcases can you cram in there? How much space do you get with the seats folded down? This wasn't about being glamorous. It was about getting the job done. And at the absolute heart of this European identity were the diesel engines. I mean, models like the 200D were just legendary. Now, they were slow, no question about it. We're talking only about 72 horsepower, but they were famous for being practically indestructible, able to go for insane mileage with just basic upkeep. They were the very definition of long-lasting. And this list, it just sums up the whole European philosophy for the W124 perfectly. Speed was way less important than durability. Having a manual transmission was totally normal. So were cloth seats and, yeah, even hand-crank windows. The real focus was on that rock-solid engineering, not necessarily all the bells and whistles. Okay, so now let's hop across the Atlantic because in the United States, the W124 was a whole different animal. It wasn't a workhorse over there. No way. It was a status symbol, positioned as this luxury powerhouse for the successful executive. For the American market, what was under the hood was everything. To compete with other luxury brands and just meet what buyers expected, it had to have power. So while Europe was chugging along with its humble diesels, the US got options like this potent V8 in the high-performance 500e model. Just let that number sink in for a minute. 322 horsepower. That is literally more than 4 times the power of the basic European diesel model. This was not a car for taxi fleets. This was a car built for the American highway. And you could feel that difference the second you sat inside. Look at that deep grain walnut trim, the leather steering wheel, those plush leather seats. This stuff wasn't an optional package. A lot of the time, this was just standard. The whole environment was designed for pure comfort and luxury. Basically, all the things that were considered luxuries or optional extras back in Europe, yeah, in America, they were non-negotiable. An automatic transmission, air conditioning, power windows, power seats, that was just the price of admission to the US luxury market, and powerful V6 and V8 gas engines were what people wanted. And if you want to know how America saw this car, you don't need to look any further than this quote from the US brochure. They called the 500e the world's best sports sedan. A sports sedan, that's a universe away from the dependable, practical hauler we saw in the European ads. So on one hand, you have the workhorse, on the other, the powerhouse. It's two incredibly different takes on the exact same car. Let's really put them side by side and break down what set them apart. This chart really lays it all out, and the differences pretty much boiled down to 2 things: government regulations and what customers wanted. European models got these sleek, beautiful glass headlights, but American models had to have these larger, federally mandated sealed beam units. US safety rules also meant bigger, chunkier bumpers that kind of messed with the car's clean lines. And then, of course, you had the completely opposite approaches to engines and interiors. And you can see this difference plain as day just by looking at the car's face. On the left, you've got Europe's elegant, integrated glass headlights that flow with the design. And on the right, the much larger, more blocky sealed beams that were required by US law at the time. It completely changes the car's expression. I mean, this slide just boils the entire difference down to its absolute essence. You have the humble 72 horsepower 200D, the champion of European economy, right up against the 322 horsepower 500E, the American symbol of raw performance. It's the same basic car, but with 2 wildly different hearts beating inside. So what's the big deal? Why does this whole tale of two cars even matter? Well, it matters because it shows how a single, brilliantly engineered car could be perfectly adapted to serve two completely different worlds and create a lasting legacy in both.
In the end, it's like the W144's story went down two separate paths. One path was shaped by Europe's obsession with efficiency, practicality, and just making things last. The other path was forged by American safety rules and this massive consumer demand for luxury, power, and comfort.
But this is the most important part of the whole story. Underneath all the different headlights and bumpers and engines, the core DNA was exactly the same. Whether you bought a basic diesel taxi or a fire-breathing V8, every single W124 shared that same fundamental commitment to safety, to quality, and to that incredible, over-engineered feeling. It's just an amazing testament to the genius of the original design. It was a single, iconic chassis that could be a humble workhorse or a high-performance luxury sedan, and it never, ever compromised its core integrity. Two different identities, but one absolute legend. And all of this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question, doesn't it? In today's world, the era of the global car, where platforms are all standardized to save money, could a car company ever create a single model with two such different market-specific personalities again? Or was the W124 a special product of a time that's truly gone for good?